So good morning, everybody. My name is Sof Skill Success, and I am the owner of TrainedIn. TrainedIn is a marketplace which is designed for training and consultancy providers to showcase their business and services. And as part of our action to the COVID-19 situation, we're hosting these fantastic free webinar series. And today we have the lovely Maureen McCowen from Sof Skill Success, who's going to be talking to us about webinar presentation skills, something that we all need to, I think, address at the moment because everything is going online. Just before we start talking to Maureen, a couple of little webinar housekeeping. We can't see you and we can't hear you, but we are encouraging you very strongly to use our chat facility because we'd love to hear your opinion. We want to make this as engaging as possible and get the most out of your time with Maureen and ask as many questions as you can. I have a number of polls that we're going to pop out during the course of the webinar to encourage engagement and kind of to get a gauge of where you are and to make this as interactive as possible. I've started the first one at the moment, which is prior to COVID-19, how often did you use video conferencing platform? So this is like so Maureen can kind of get in her head how she wants to gauge where you guys all are at. There's a couple of offers will pop out, and we have about 4 or 5 polls, I think. And Maureen's not going to really use the presentation, but I have her slide that I'll share with you all via the same platform after. We are being recorded, so anyone can watch the replay link after. So Maureen, tell us a little about you and who you are.
So I'm Maureen McCowen and living in Nason, County Kildare for the past 26 years now at this stage. And my background is secondary teaching. So I set up my business, Sof Skill Success, in end of January, beginning of February of 2019. So just over a year on the go now at this stage. So I took a career break from teaching and set up in business. A bit of a
Fantastic.
step.
Wow. And yeah. Why did you change career from teaching?
I was looking for something different, and I think it's only since I stepped away from teaching that I really realized how much I really wanted to do something different. Like what we were saying earlier, I think when we look back on the COVID-19 thing and how we are in this rat race that we're talking about at the moment, and you know, busy, we look back and say, my goodness, that was a really difficult time. But when you're in it, you don't realize. When you step away from it, it's easier to get perspective on it. And the same for me, since I stepped away from teaching, I started to realize that I really did need that break and do something else. I was 29 years teaching. That's a long time to be doing anything, you know. Yeah. So it was good to change. And in one way, it was a big change. From a business point of view, it was huge because no business background. And in another way, I'm doing what I've always done, which is my subjects were languages, Irish and French. So I was encouraging and empowering young gentlemen in ACBS to communicate in languages. And now I'm doing the same thing with adults to help them to unlock their communication and presentation skills. So it's one big change, but it's not huge really, same skills.
Yeah. Do you find it more difficult to teach adults than you did teaching young boys? Because I suppose adults, some might think that they know everything, while as young boys, probably, well, some of them probably do think they know everything as well. Or what skills did you find cross-transferable between teaching?
You must never have been in a situation of trying to teach 30 teenagers the joys of the Brief and Yavrilta and the Amshakata, where you've got this sort of, you know.
Thankfully not, Maureen.
So no, it's fantastic because you have people who are willing to listen and to learn and to take on board what it is that you're saying. So yeah, it's great. I love it.
You must have a real knack then for I suppose in your own head, finding the people who you know in a room are going to be the most work to get engaged, because I suppose you'd be able to see from looking at your participants who are those people who where you need to focus on more, or who may seem as disinterested.
Yeah, it's an interesting point actually, and I suppose, yeah, it's one of the things that you're not going to spend as long in the classroom as what I did without picking up all of those skills and being aware of it. And that's probably one of the challenges that we have then when we transfer to webinar, because you're not getting that same feedback. And it's much more difficult to gauge the room and to gauge what's going on. And, you know, really, I have no guarantee that everybody hasn't just got their phone in their hand and they're scrolling through what's on at the moment. So you just have to do the best and use the techniques that you have and that I'll be going through in a few minutes to try to make sure that you're engaging people, but also checking in with them regularly to make sure that they're following and that they're understanding what's being said, using the different interactive engagement options like we were speaking about as well.
Yeah, interesting. And why do people go to you most for training? What are your fortes from a training perspective?
So two different answers to that. I suppose people come because the main word that I hear from clients again and again and again is that they want clarity. That they want to have clarity in their message, that they want to be sure that if they stand up to speak, whether it's for a 60-second pitch or whether it's speaking at a conference, that their message is clear in their heads, first of all, because very often people aren't really sure what it is that they want to say. So it's getting that clarity in their own message and being able to communicate that clarity to others. So that's first and foremost what people want. Then I suppose from the feedback that I'm getting from people, that I can break things down into very clear steps. So it's nice and simple, clear steps, good structure. That's what they gain from working with me then in whatever format.
Interesting.
So, and I suppose what I'm discovering as well is, again, from the teaching background, that you can change and you can adapt. If something's not working well, you spot it very fast and you can change, you can adapt very quickly to that. I mean, if you have a situation again back in the classroom, you might go in and you've got something planned for your class and you walk in and half of the lads are gone to play a football match. And you have to adapt. I mean, the word pivot is what's being used at the moment, and I have some strange dislike to the word pivot. Not the notion of it, not the whole idea of adapting is what we're all doing, but the word pivot just does something in my brain. I don't know at the moment. That's what you have to do. You know, if you went in, you can't let your 40-minute class go to waste. You have to do something that's beneficial, but there's no point in doing something that you're going to have to repeat tomorrow when everybody's there. So that adapting to what's there, thinking on your feet, changing and adapting it, that's all part of what I bring to what I'm doing now as well.
And I think that's a sign of a really good trainer, somebody who can adapt and not pivot, who can pivot to gauge their audience and adapt what their lesson was going to be, because that people aren't at the standard of what your client thought they were at, or if the people in the room are at a higher standard, and to be able to use your own knowledge and your own, I suppose, interpretation of the room at the situation that it is.
Yeah, it is. And if you take, being able to say, or having the confidence in yourself to be able to say, do you know what? I don't think this is working. Let's try it from a different angle, or let's talk this through, see what the difficulty is. If that's a difficulty and an issue, then that takes confidence in yourself to be able to do that, to recognize it, and to be able to say, right, let's get this from a different angle and get there, but that's what's important.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, before we kick off, Maureen, I'll just look at the poll here. So I put in a couple of options. I had at least once per day. So the two that are coming up are at least once per week. And then I put in an option for chat because I wasn't sure. So let's see, Mike, every couple of months, but will now be delivering twice per week at a minimum. Okay. Chloe, never delivered webinars prior to previous 2 weeks. Now I deliver Tuesday and Wednesday evenings instead of classroom settings. Wow, be interesting to see how you're finding that, Chloe. Seamus, I think people will adjust very quickly to delivering in this new world. I think people have to, Seamus. It's do or die really kind of situation. Geraldine has never delivered webinars. We can help you with that, Geraldine, don't worry. Chloe, again, yes, Seamus, I found myself over the past 2 weeks, I think my skills have improved, but definitely a big leap to moving online and for students too. Bridie, pivot is the latest buzzword, and I think it means to do what we're trying to do, take what we have, adjust and deliver, or reach our clients in a different way from a different angle. So this webinar is just timely for us. Thank you. Now delivering 2 to 3 per week, Geraldine. Wow. Move from little to every day. My fantastic. So we've got regular users on here, so people really needing these skills. I'm just going to end that poll there and start another one.
So then, well, we've got a lot of the answers there to the next poll, because the next one was asking, you know, now how often are people using it? So I think you've got a lot of the answers there. That it's a situation that I would have been familiar with platforms from being the student point of view, being an attendee point of view, but from the delivering of webinars, just being upfront first and foremost. My speciality is presentation skills. I'm like a lot of people that's here. I delivered my first webinar last Friday. I delivered 2 webinars on Friday. So what I'm taking a look at today is how to use the same type of strategy, the same structure that I use for delivering a normal presentation, a face-to-face presentation, and then how do we adapt that to a webinar situation. So I'm definitely not putting myself up here as an expert on webinars, because there are people more experienced than me, but I'm bringing the information that what I have from presentation skills and adapting that here. But
I think what you have done, Maureen, has been very effective. And while you might have done your first webinars last week, you are used to video conferencing, and your webinars were also almost 2 hours long each. So I think they were very long. And I suppose the longer a webinar is, the more that you fall into that category of losing people's interest. So it's all about keeping
which is what I'll be speaking about now in a moment if I go in. So are we ready to start in today?
Over to you.
Excellent, that's great, thanks a million. So Sorka had mentioned there already, and was wondering whether to do a PowerPoint or not today, whether to have a slide or not, and I'll be speaking about slides in a few moments, but for today I'm not having a slide, but the information is all on a downloadable PDF that's in the files, so that you have all of the information there already. So I have a presentation that exists already called the 3 Ps of an effective presentation, and I have just adapted that to the 3 Ps of an effective online presentation, and it's taking the exact same 3 Ps, which are prepare, practice, and then the post-presentation evaluation. And I will be looking at each of those 3 today and different headings within each of them. I'm not covering everything, but there are a lot of the core elements that are going to be covered in this. So under the prepare, and the first part of the preparation is going to be for your audience. So if you can have an idea as to who has registered, who's going to be there, as in what type of background are they? Are they business owners? Are they employees? What concerns do they have? Sometimes that can be screened if it's a webinar that you're running yourself. You can have a couple of questions in the sign-up form that you can get a little bit of information to get an idea as to who it is that's going to be there. Secondly, under audience is the engagement, and we were speaking about that earlier, Sarika, but how do you know that your audience are engaged? So the use of the chat is great. Getting people to ask questions. The polls are great. Depending on the platform that you're using, the webinars that I ran last week, they were 90 minutes long, but I had 2 breakout room sessions. So people were doing great group work for 20 minutes in groups of 4 in their breakout rooms, and then we came back and fed back, very like what you would have in a normal classroom situation, and we were able to adapt that, and that worked very well. So it's having a look at all of those. Now, there is a disadvantage to the chats and the polls, and that is if you are holding a lot of chats and polls. If I'm holding it and I'm on my own and I have to be reading what's there, it can be very distracting for the audience. So Sarika is here today. She's able to screen what's coming in, and it means that I'm not distracted by that. Now, we're all doing the best we can at the moment, but in an ideal world, that's what the situation would be, that you'd have somebody who's able to monitor what's coming in and not maybe give every single comment, but the highlights, or if there's a key question or something that's relevant to bring it up there. So that's your audience, first of all. Second point under the prepare is the platform, and to spend some time being familiar with it. So I used Zoom, which is one that an awful lot of people are using now. I used Zoom for my webinar last week. I hadn't even experienced a breakout room from an attendee point of view before, but I knew that they existed. So I had family members in breakout rooms. I was putting them into breakout rooms the night before, or 2 nights before, just in case I needed to look up a YouTube video to get more information out. But it was that practice beforehand to say, all right, okay, this is what happens, and then they're kicked out after that length of time, and just being familiar with what the platform is. Last Thursday, I think it was, Sorcha, that you contacted me and said we arranged a time that we come on so that I would see how this is working now. It's a sign of the way that Sorcha approaches these whole webinars in a really professional way. I have to say to you that they're super. But it was that I came on, that I could see exactly what I was going to be seeing this morning. There's nothing new or strange to me when I logged on at 9:45 this morning. So it's getting familiar with the platform. It can be muted or videos off and all of that. And again, having I like the housekeeping rules that Sorcha does at the beginning for this, where everybody is clear. This is exactly what's happening. This is how you can communicate with us, but we're not going to be seeing you on screen. So it's all part of the preparation on that. And then the third element under preparation is the same as any presentation. It's your content. And as always, keep your content as simple and as straightforward as possible. There's no point in bombarding people with a huge amount of information or a huge amount of data and stats and so on. You keep it as simple and straightforward as possible. Under content as well is the whole idea of slides. And my key guideline for slides always is, if the slides are needed to help the audience better remember or better understand what you're saying, then slides are good. If not, you don't need them. The content that I have here this morning isn't difficult to understand, so slides aren't going to help you understand it better. There's a number of points that are there, but I've provided the PDF so that you have your summary there. So it's not going to help you better remember it, because you can download the PDF. From an engagement point of view, in my opinion, particularly when it is online, I think it's really important that you've got that the person's face is there and that you can see them and interact in them, rather than having the small little image in the corner when the slide is up. If you are using slides, the usual rules apply. Images rather than text, to have minimum text on the slide, and if possible, make sure that you are able to possibly interact, that you can put a slide up, make your point, but then remove the slide so that it's back you face to face. You're trying to recreate that face-to-face experience that you would have in a classroom. And the slides, if they're up there, they're creating an extra barrier. And it's difficult enough trying to focus on the camera and all of these different things as well. But if you are having slides there as an extra barrier, that can cause a difficulty. So I would be cautious with the use of slides. Again, use them if they're needed to help your audience better understand or better remember what it is that you're saying. There might be technical information that you need a slide for, whatever. So that will be what my guideline is. And that's all the time. That's for any time that you're delivering a presentation, not just online for that. So that's the first P of prepare. Second P, practice. So I had mentioned there about talking with Sorcha during the week. We went onto the webinar jam here. We had a trial run to see what it was like. I did the practice before my Zoom one the other day as well. So to practice to see what's this going to look like. Very often you can record yourself in a trial session. How does it sound? How does it look? If you're doing your slides, what way does that come across? Have your practice beginning first of all here in your setup. Now you had Paul McDermott on last week from Social Video HQ, who gave great tips with regard to using your camera. And a lot of those tips are going to be very similar for here. We're making do a lot of us at the moment, we're trying to find a room in the house where there isn't somebody else. In this house here is somebody working upstairs and studying next door. So we're making do. But it's just to try to be as aware as possible with regard to having the camera at eye level, that you've got minimum distraction in your background, and that your sound quality is good, so that you're having practiced beforehand what your setup is going to look like. Practice your presentation style. When, again, it is just you and the camera, you're hoping that you're going to be engaging your audience. So the use of voice is more important than ever. Two ways. First of all, the pace that you're delivering at. You need to slow it down a little bit more, particularly if there are slides as well. It's harder to grasp the information when it's being delivered online, but also for your vocal variety, because I was listening to somebody speaking last week and it was very monotone voice, and I was reaching for the phone, and you don't want people reaching for the phone. You don't have the same full body language as you would normally have if you're presenting. So it means that your face and facial expressions are really important as well. So to be aware of that, that's all helping to keep your audience interested and engaged. If you look interested and engaged in what you're saying, then you're helping them to be interested as well. And then also to be aware of gestures, and when you're recording yourself, have a look at that, while you might be using hand gestures to make a point, but if I have my hand gestures all of the time like that, it's very distracting. So just to be aware of all of those things when you're doing your preparation. And then from the third point that I have in practice is from the screen share. Because if I'm going to be sharing my screen, I need to have practiced exactly where I need to go to, so that that can be done as quickly, as slick as possible. That I'm not, where is it here? Where do I have to, that's distracting and it doesn't look professional. So have all of these things practiced in advance, particularly again, if you're doing like what I suggested, that you're maybe going in and out of slides and only using them for when they're absolutely needed. That needs to be smooth. So practice that in advance. So that's our second P. So we've done prepare and we've done the practice. And then the third part is the post-presentation feedback. And again, this is something that I recommend to my clients all of the time. It's our best way to improve. So simple way that you can do it is, if you have a recording, watch yourself back and see, what did I do well? And I know a lot of us don't like watching ourselves back on camera, and we don't like the sound of our voice and all this. We just have to get over all that and just have a look and see, how did I do? So I had the 2 webinars last Friday. I watched the recording back of one of them. I haven't looked at the second one yet. But one of, some of the things that I was noticing was that the second half of it, I was engaging much better in the camera than I was at the beginning, probably because I was a bit nervous starting off. The times that I was on the chat, and again, this distraction because I'm looking down here, and what that looked like from my audience point of view. You're not aware of it yourself. So there's a lot of learning in that from watching back. Second thing that you can do, if it is a webinar, that you might have a survey to give at the end, just to see what worked well and what areas needed tweaking. And again, I got a lot of really helpful feedback when I had the survey at the end of the webinar that I did last week. It was 90 minutes of people's time that I wanted to make sure that I could improve that for future events and make sure that it's worthwhile for people. And then third way that you can look for post-presentation feedback is just to ask somebody that you know is going to be there, but rather than saying, how did I do? Be very specific. So for example, it could be that you say, right, Soraka, would you mind just keeping an eye and seeing at what point was my message maybe a little bit unclear, or did I ramble off point, or was there any point where you found your attention was drifting? That's a very good question to ask at any time. At what point did your attention start to drift? Because it could be for a variety of reasons, but it could be because of something that you're saying or not explaining well. So it's always good practice to get feedback, take that on board, and then go ahead with it. So from the survey point of view, if it is, let's say, one person who makes a comment, well, then that was an issue for that person. If you've got 4 or 5 people saying that you spoke a bit fast or whatever the feedback is, then it's time to really start paying attention and having a look and go back over it yourself and see, yeah, did they have a point? And maybe tweak it and adapted from that. So in summary again, you're talking about the 3 Ps. So we had our prepare, first of all. So from the preparation point of view, preparing for your audience, preparing on your platform, and preparing your content in advance. Second P, we were looking at the practice, and that's practicing all of the technology beforehand, the setup of it. How are you going to present? Practice to see, record yourself to see, is my voice quite monotone? Is my face just, expressionless? Or how can you add a bit of life to that? Practice screen share if that's what you're going to be using. And then for the feedback that you can look back on the video that you've done yourself, you can ask for survey from the audience, or that you could ask a participant for specific feedback to get specific information. So that's pretty much what I have to say on that. I know I noticed from what you sent out yesterday, Sorry, that you said about dress code as well. It wasn't something that I had included in this, but it's actually a very interesting point, because if you are presenting, it's professional setting. It might be in your kitchen, or it might be in the kids' playroom, or wherever it is, but it's your professional self that's presenting, regardless of what the environment is. So it's important that that's portrayed as well in the way that you are setting yourself up. It's part of your own preparation.
I think it's true. You are a professional setting, and it's what people will expect from you. One thing that I did learn from yesterday also was, and I'd never thought of it before, contingency planning. What happens if you have technical difficulties? And yesterday the webinar Jam platform would not work for us. We were chatting beforehand, and when we went into the live room, it didn't work. So we quickly created a Zoom meeting, downloaded the contact list of all of the attendees, and brought people from this platform over to Zoom. So today for this meeting, you might have seen in the last email that went out that we had in red letters, if we don't go live bang on 10 o'clock, we'll be moving to another platform. And I had Zoom set up. Please apologize for the barking in the background. So it's contingency planning as well, but everything that you said there, Maureen, bang on. And I think I've learned a lot from you. I'm just going to bring it back to the poll here to see from the engagement perspective.
Great.
The I suppose lack of interest in subject matter, 21% of people would switch off. 35% of people would switch off for technical difficulties or poor presentation, and 7% of people for no interaction with attendees. So it's interesting, but I think you've addressed all of those matters within what you said. There's a couple of chats that came in from Seamus. Great tip to have a moderator. Yes, I'd agree with that, but as Maureen said, it's not always possible to do that. Yeah, I understand.
It's great, because it just helps it to run along that much more.
It does.
But it's not always possible. It's something to be, I suppose, be aware of and to aspire towards.
Yeah.
But I just want to say, Sorka, I was so impressed yesterday, because I was one of the people that was in the room. It was the first chance I got the opportunity to be here live yesterday. I've watched the rest of them on replay. And I would think within 10 minutes, we had the email to say we're going to Zoom, and it was all set up very fast and very, very professional. It is very important that you have that contingency plan. Yeah. I had, again, for Zoom was set up on my phone for my own webinar last Friday in case something went wrong with the laptop. Yeah. Sometimes it jumps out of Wi-Fi, so the phone was ready. And it's really important that you have that, and that you sort of indicate to people, look, things can go wrong. And people are very forgiving of technology. And it's a very good time for those of us that are new to webinars. This is the best time ever to get into it, because the vast majority of people who are attending and giving webinars are new to it. We're very forgiving, we're very relaxed. People don't mind if the dog is in the background or the kids are in the background, because that's what's life for all of us. Yeah. If these aren't normal circumstances. So if anybody is sort of a bit hesitant or reluctant, I think there's never going to be a better time to go and to do it.
Yeah.
And make the mistakes now and learn from your mistakes now, so that you've got that to bring with you, into the future, that you're well prepared.
Absolutely, I totally agree. It's a great time to start because of the forgiveness that's there for people. Mike has just asked, what length of a session would you recommend? I teach apprentices that have fairly short attention spans, and that's when they're in the classroom.
Yeah, so for that, it means the length depends very much on what the content is. Could it be broken down into small sections? Could there be, again, depending on the content, depending on what the topic is, but maybe there could be parts of it that could be delivered by video, bite-sized videos, and then a coming together part of it. That was the program that I did last week. It was the Get to Grips with Your 60-second pitch. I had a daily video that was between 3 and 5 minutes long with the task. So email, video, and task. And that built on one day after the other. And then on the webinar on Friday, which was still 90 minutes, we were bringing all of that together. And the feedback that I got was that worked really, really well. People liked it. So I would think, it can be difficult for all of us to sit, definitely sort of for long periods of time. So how long could you sit comfortably without wanting to get up and have a stretch yourself? Build in 5-minute comfort break or a 10-minute coffee break or whatever. Say, okay, we're taking a break now and we're going to be back here in 15 minutes. Try to build in as much activity as you can, getting people active, engaged in different tasks that could happen. But possibly there could be that option of people learning a certain amount themselves, first of all, short videos, and then coming together for a Q&A or breakout rooms where they're working together. It depends very much on the topic. I saw somebody the other day who, Noel Davidson from the Entrepreneurs Academy, he was after delivering an 8-hour Zoom class, but I have no doubt that was full of breaks and activities and so on at the time.
Yeah.
40 minutes can seem very, very long, and 3 hours could be short if it's broken up and divided the right way. But thinking it and planning it through and thinking about it from the person who's sitting down point of view. So when I am planning out any workshop, I will have my content written down, but I'll also be highlighting beside it when there is an activity. So there's a participant activity here, there's another one here. Oh, I haven't done anything for quite a while, I need to put something in here. And that activity can be just short break, it could be them working in pairs or working in groups. Think the same way when you're doing it online, probably more so when you're doing it online. Because I think if I was sitting at a talk or seminar in person, I'm very reluctant to get up and to walk out. It's much easier to walk away from your screen.
Yeah. It is, absolutely. I think personally 8 hours is too long, but as you said, if you do it properly, 4 hours is verging on a limit. But I think ideally 1 hour to 2 hours maximum. But again, encourage interactivity, polls, breakout rooms, that kind of thing. And your content is key for something like that. And your own personality and your charisma and how you interact, because if you're somebody who's monotone and not usually kind of flamboyant or gesture a lot, your preparation, one of your P's, Maureen, is key there for replaying and looking at how you come across on video and your engagement level. Because if you're not engaging as a person and your body language, you need to work on it, or else it won't work for you. Just coming back to some of the questions there, Michael, I hope that Mike, I hope that answered your question there in terms of session length. Michael O'Gorman, the platform is called Webinar Jam. I did a lot of research into webinars, but I can send you details on it, that's no problem. It is very easy to use from a user and a presenter perspective, and all of the features allow you to interact with people very easily. Variety polls are great for interaction. Yes, that's great. It is recorded, so I'll send you a link after this. I'm sending on links to a number of people who were late, so at all. Everybody, just to bring your attention to the file. So I just shared the file there for Maureen for her presentation, and also Maureen has an offer where she's giving €50 off her workshops for this week only. So if you click into offers, you'll be able to get a direct link to Maureen's webinars to chat to her.
So for that €50, they need the promo code TrainedIn.
That's right.
So capital T,
for
case sensitive,
yeah.
TrainedIn. So that's if anybody wants one-to-one training on presentation skills, or I have an 8-person maximum webinar coming up on the 60-second pitch. So €50 off both of those.
I am definitely one who's going to be signing up for the 60-second pitch, Maureen, so you can count me in as your first one. I think that's it. Does anybody have any final questions? If not, we'll close out. So I'll just, Maureen, I want to thank you for your time. I know how busy you are. So for you coming on here to give us your almost an hour for the before and after, thank you so much. And the time that putting together your presentation was fantastic. Just Michael, different between pivot and adapt. Adapt suggests attentive to need of adaptation, constantly looking for the adaptation based on a customer journey.
Yeah,
absolutely, Michael. So I think, look, that's it. I think
sorry, thanks a million to you for this opportunity, and I'm really enjoying the webinars each day. Right. And it's great that they're available for playback as well, because like I said, I'm not always available at 10 o'clock, and it's great to have the opportunity to catch up with a wealth of knowledge being shared here. So it's great because it shows the caliber of trainers and presenters and coaches that you have on the platform. So well done.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Maureen. And for those of you who are looking for our webinar is with Billy O'Dwyer from Credit Space, and it's fixing your Corona cash flow. So anybody who's interested in that could be a very interesting webinar.
I love the there, the Corona cash flow.
You know, the Corona cash flow. So yeah, we'll see what happens on that one. Listen, thank you very much, Maureen. It was a pleasure to have you on today, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks everybody for your engagement, and please feel free to drop us a line. Bye now.